So literally a few months ago, homes were selling in a matter of days, and the homes that did sell sold for well more than people were asking. It's crazy, right? To think that in a few months, things have changed that drastically, where now homes are not selling in a matter of days, and a majority of the time when they do sell, they're selling for at or possibly even below list price. So what brought on that change so suddenly? At the end of the day, when you break it down, it really boils down to affordability. How much can the average consumer afford? Now again, a few months ago, things were crazy, and as I mentioned, we're selling like well over asking, which leads one to believe that affordability when it came to the housing market months ago was significantly different than it is now. But what is it that drives affordability when it comes to the housing market? There are three things that really determine affordability when it comes to the housing market. Now, the first factor when it comes to affordability in the housing market, well, is mortgage interest rates. And that's pretty much the buzzword or the big headline that we're seeing right now, is that mortgage rates have climbed, and they have climbed so much that it has put the brakes on the real estate market, which to an extent it has. One can argue that, we're not at a breaking point when it comes to these interest rates, and interest rates could continue to go up a little bit more, as some speculate that they will, before it will theoretically break the real estate market, right? So what exactly is interest, right? The easiest way to think about interest is this is the amount that someone is going to charge you over time based on the amount of money that you are borrowing from them, okay? So obviously the lower amount or the lower the interest rate that someone's going to charge you over the course of the loan, the cheaper it is for you to make those payments. So as interest goes up, the payment goes up. As interest goes down, the payment goes down, regardless how much money you're borrowing, right? If you're borrowing $300,000, the payment's gonna be more if the interest is up than it would be if the interest was lower, okay? So interest definitely has an effect on affordability. But is it the biggest factor that controls affordability? Well, I don't know. I would speculate or argue that it does not, but what are your thoughts? Do you think mortgage interest rates are the number one factor that controls, or could it be something else along the lines of home prices? Aside from mortgage rates, the home prices will determine affordability. It makes sense, right? The more expensive houses are, then the more difficult it is for one to afford or obtain those type of houses. Now, earlier in the video, I spoke about interest rates and how the interest rates where they're at right now doesn't necessarily break the market. What I want for people to think about, and this was one of the biggest issues that I saw and tried to convey in videos previously when it came to the real estate market in 21 and 22, okay? What we saw then, because interest was so low, we saw consumers actually drive up. They artificially drove up the value of homes in different neighborhoods. And here's what I mean by that. Not only did we see a lot of mortgaged properties or financed properties, we also saw a lot of cash transactions. And between those two, we saw a large portion of people either waive an appraisal or agreed to pay the gap between the appraised value and what they were buying for the property. Using easy numbers, let's just say a house was worth $300,000. And because the market was so hot and inventory was so limited, a cash buyer comes into the market and says, I don't care that that house is worth $300,000. I have $350,000 in my pocket, and I'm willing to pay you for that house. So here's $350,000, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. Thank you very much. Well, now the neighbor who wants to sell their home or is trying to figure out whether or not now is a good time to sell their property just says, well, that house next door just sold for $350,000. Well, my house must be worth $350,000 too. Well, no, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, your house is not worth $350,000. It's actually worth $300,000, but someone paid $350,000 for the house next door, cash, which, yes, one could argue if someone's paying that amount, then that's what the market will bear, but not in the market that we saw the last 2 years. A lot of the offers were ego-driven and were actually made because, well, it's also a domino effect in real estate, right? If I sell my home for $50,000 or $70,000 more than it's worth, and I have $50,000 more in my pocket, what am I gonna do with that? The average consumer is gonna use it and they're going to roll that into the next transaction, which is what we saw previously. All of that behavior took homes that were worth $300,000 and made them worth $350,000 overnight because of the way the market was shaped, right? So to backtrack, we have mortgage rates, right? We have mortgage rates that fluctuate. We have home prices that fluctuate, and we saw home prices skyrocket, like astronomically skyrocket over the last couple years, okay? So we have two factors so far, but there's another, right? The third factor that comes into play when it comes to affordability, well, is the job market. It's employment and it's wages. And over the last few years, we've seen a lot of different things go up in price, whether it be the houses that we're purchasing, whether it's the bricks and the sticks that builders need to construct the homes, whether it's the gas that we need to put in our cars to get us to work, or the gas that the builders need to build the homes. Whatever it is, we've seen all of these different things go up in price. Inflation, we've heard about throughout the headlines, climbing interest rates, right? A lot of people put things on their credit card, so not only are products more expensive, but when you put them on your credit card, it's harder for you to pay them off. When you look at all of that and you look at the rate in which things went up and compare that to the rate in which people were paid, well, we didn't see rates increase anywhere near to the amount that we saw some of the other things, right? Inflation, gas prices, food. The inflation greatly outpaced wage increases, okay? So those are the three factors that will determine, drive, or impact home affordability. But what I want to know from you, in your opinion, is which one of these three factors have the most weight when it comes to home affordability? Do me a favor, let me know in the comments, and hopefully this information has helped you understand a little bit when it comes to why markets have changed quickly, why interest rates do have a direct impact on the housing market, as well as home prices, and lastly, employment or wages. With all of that said, I'm Chris Nelson, team lead of the Nelson Home Group, helping buyers and sellers here in the greater Philadelphia area. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. And if you are a buyer, a seller, or thinking about buying or selling, download our buyer and seller's guide. The link is in the description. And with that said, take care.